to VerySpatialTV, and this is one of our Out and About episodes. And today we are joined by Christine. Hello, Christine.
Hi, Sue.
And Christine is one of our colleagues and experts on cemeteries and how you can study cemeteries in geography and historic preservation. So, Christine, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we are today?
Well, today we're at the Oak Grove Cemetery, which is a cemetery that basically started having people interred in the 19th century, earlier 19th century, and throughout the 20th century. And every once in a while, about once every 4 months, they still have someone interred in this cemetery.
What do you think are some of the interesting things? Because there are thousands of cemeteries all over the U.S. that are like this. They're not necessarily connected to a church or any kind of religious denomination, but they're pretty common in most towns and larger cities. So, Christine, what can studying the people that are buried in a cemetery like this tell us about the community they lived in and also about the people themselves?
Well, it can tell you where people immigrated from. It can tell you the ages and sexes that they are or were, and like the life expectancy of the people at the time. It can tell you their religious affiliations and different other organizations that they belong to. And a lot of times it can give you their economic status.
So really, it can actually tell you a lot about a community, maybe much more so than people think just driving by or walking by a cemetery every day.
Oh, yes.
So as geographers, we're also interested in kind of the spatial pattern of the cemetery and how, where the markers and graves are placed and the way they're oriented can also inform us about the people. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. A lot of times, the way that the markers are oriented has to do with their religion and their religious beliefs, because certain religions believe you should be buried in a certain direction. How close you are to members of your family can also have an economic impact, because you could only afford a smaller spot, so you could get 5 people in instead of 1.
So, actually, Christine, kind of following on from that, a lot of people don't know that cemeteries aren't also always places of dread, and that in the 19th and early 20th century, a lot of them were actually parks.
Yes, they were. And a lot of people today even feel very close to cemeteries and use them as parks. There's a lot of different features within certain cemeteries that make it quite park-like.
What would be some of the examples? I mean, there's a few of them here, but what are some of the examples that were used to kind of create the park-like setting?
Benches and water features such as ponds, different plantings, paths that you could walk on.
And I have to say that one of the more famous cemeteries where I come from up in Rochester actually had large plantings of lilacs and roses. So a lot of flower plantings. And so it was very, very common to actually walk through there if you were wealthy, spend a Sunday afternoon walking through the cemetery. So that's kind of interesting that people don't realize that they weren't always places that you avoided. So documenting cemeteries, and especially now that GIS is a tool. In fact, there have been a number of projects, including the one that you're working on, Christine, that have shown how useful this is. And I guess if people really want to, try to do this in their local area or find out how, what's a good resource they can go to?
Actually, they can check with their state historic preservation office and find out what kind of requirements their state has for certain things like that. But always online, there's different groups like Grave Matters, I think it's a .org, and other groups online that are really into preserving cemeteries, but they're more into the physical cemetery and helping preserve the stones appropriately and everything.
All right. Well, Christine, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I know you're actually working on your own project, so we're looking forward to see that, because not only are you doing your own cemetery, but also kind of showing how to use some of these tools in historic preservation. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much.